It is. There we go. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 7th webinar series co-hosted by Penn State Sustainability and the GreenGov Council. Our presentation today is on the Sustainable Lab Consultants Program, Reducing Environmental Impacts and Energy Use in Laboratories. My name is Peter Boger, and I'm the Director for Engagement and the co-lead for Sustain Penn State, which is one of 3 offices that makes up Penn State Sustainability. And our partnership has been going on for several years now with the GreenGov Council because we have similar missions. We are both small cogs in very big wheels, very big organizations, and we both know that we cannot be the owners of sustainability, whether it's for Penn State or for the Commonwealth government. Instead, it is our job to be conveners, connectors, and catalyzers, bringing people together for events like what we have today to help build community around sustainability across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It's my great pleasure to be a partner in this enterprise, now going on 7 times, with the GreenGov Council. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt Reese, who is the Assistant Director for the GreenGov Council.
Yeah, and thanks, Peter. And it's hard to believe that we're in our 7th webinar series, and what a terrific partnership that it's been. And I was thinking about a message here of for this morning, and something I've been thinking about the past couple of days is like how many folks that we've touched with this webinar series, right? So these past couple of years, the 7 series, we have a minimum of 6 webinars per series, thousands of folks over the time. And you know what? We've done it with like essentially no budget. And I guess the message there that I want to share is that, everybody holds, sustainability and resiliency and all of those things, within themselves and their positions. And like, what a great thing that, anybody can lift it up. And it's just a matter of like changing your mindset or making a couple of different tweaks here and there, and it's not something that we have to like, the investment of it is like within our own selves, right? It's not like necessarily a dollar's investment. So, and I guess this webinar series is the proof of that. So, hugely successful, touching thousands of people, very little budget to make that happen. And, I'm really proud of that. And I think that, those are the components that, everybody can, reflect on and deliver within their organization, no matter where they are, right? And I think those are parts that are critical and core to, sustain Penn State and the GreenGov's mission. And and I guess from there, I'm Matt Reese, GreenGov Deputy Director, and certainly happy to be here. And with that said, I guess I'll hand it back to you, Peter, and to introduce our speakers for today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Matt. And as you said, I think a big part of this series has been finding great examples of things where people are lifting up great ideas and hopefully sharing them and giving you ideas for how they might apply no matter where you come to this webinar series. And that was especially true with today. I'm very excited and privileged to be introducing 2 colleagues of mine from Penn State Sustainability who have developed such an innovative program that I think you're going to find very exciting. Dr. Krista Bailey came to Penn State with experience in teaching sustainability and leading campus and community sustainability initiatives. Throughout their career, they have put their skills in sustainability research, writing, training, project development, implementation, and evaluation into practice. Currently, Krista works on sustainability reporting for the university, developing and supporting experiential learning projects on campus, and help co-leading this Sustainable Lab program. Our second speaker, Jack Rumery, is the Assistant Director for Sustainability in the Workplace and the Sustainable Labs Program Director at Penn State, where he is also a doctoral student studying educational leadership. Raised in Michigan with a deep connection to the natural world, he has carried that sense of stewardship through leadership, teaching, and mentorship roles over his professional and academic career. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Krista and Jack.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter, and thanks, Matt. Krista, thank you for sharing your screen. Great to see some familiar names in the chat here, as well as some unfamiliar names, and I'm really excited to see such a broad audience for us to have the opportunity to share with today. So, as Peter kind of prefaced, both Krista and I are both part of the leadership team with the Penn State Sustainable Labs program, and really excited to share a little bit about what we've been working on over the years and what we've developed and some of the outcomes from the student-centered components of the program. So the way that we're going to kind of do this is both Krista and I are going to be presenting to you, but I'm going to kind of kick it off with a little bit of a high-level overview of the program just to provide people with some more context about what Penn State Sustainable Labs program is, just to give you a sense of some of the background, where it came from, and then even some insights into kind of a lab level insight. I have some beautiful, colorful graphics that I know people like to look at in terms of numbers and just some interesting little tidbits about the labs that are part of our program. And then, as the title of this webinar today suggests, the Sustainable Lab Consultants Program is kind of a piece of the pie that is the broader Sustainable Labs program. And at that point, I'll kind of turn it over to Krista to talk a little bit more about the work that she's put into, or the work that they put into developing the SLC program, and again, some of the outcomes that have come from that. So with that said, Krista, you can go to the next slide for me. For everybody who's here, the Penn State Sustainable Labs program kind of kicked off fall of 2025, its fourth year. So the program is kind of in the midst of its fourth year of existing in its current form. As generally as I can possibly phrase it, the program is an innovative approach to advancing sustainable operations in research labs. However, it doesn't stop at operations. Education is a huge part of what we do, and what we'll get into talking about with the SLCs. And again, when I say SLC, that stands for Sustainable Lab Consultant. I want to make sure I don't get too bogged down in acronyms here that folks might be less familiar with. But again, education is a huge component of what we do. Building partnerships, both internal and external, is a major part of the success of our program. Promoting behavior change and empowering the people within the lab to take the actions that they can to reduce the impacts and kind of build a culture of sustainability in those research labs. Research is an inherently kind of resource-intensive practice, especially at an R1 research university. So R1 just being a very high research activity university. Penn State is one of the largest in the country. And again, where this program came from was that about 4.5 years ago, some folks here, both at Penn State Sustainability and at the MERSEC, which is a material science research grant, came together and recognized that there was a gap kind of in the broader Penn State sustainability portfolio where there wasn't much going on in the space of dedicated sustainable research endeavor. So if you look across kind of the portfolio of what exists at Penn State Sustainability, there's stuff that's focusing on curriculum. There's stuff that talks a lot about community outreach and the work that Peter Boger does in engaging communities. But there wasn't a dedicated kind of centralized program for sustainable research. And so again, research being such a resource intensive thing, it was only natural to kind of try to develop something to meet that need. And so the partnership between the MERSEC and Penn State Sustainability was born kind of with the recognition of that, in addition to kind of benchmarking against other universities and recognizing that among those kind of high research expense universities, Penn State was one of the few that wasn't doing kind of a coordinated sustainable labs effort. You can go to the next slide, Krista. So I want to give folks just kind of a snapshot of kind of who it is behind the scenes that gets this program running. And again, I'm providing just kind of a big picture for you all. So I love graphics like these, and I hope that I don't make them too complicated sometimes. But the 5 people that you see on screen right now, that's kind of the leadership team that keeps this program going. That's our central leadership team. And the respective boxes that we fall into kind of designate who we are as it relates to the administration of the program. So Krista and I both are kind of the delegates from Penn State Sustainability. So we're in that green box together. Our colleague Kristen Dreyer, who is the one who is actually our connection to that material science research grant that I mentioned. Her and I do a lot of the program administration on the back end, kind of things like interfacing with our external partners and the budgeting, all the stuff that involves spreadsheets and kind of the more boring stuff, unless you like spreadsheets, in which case that might be really exciting. Krista kind of leads the student training and has spent time developing kind of the curriculum and the way that we have kind of grown that program with the students. Krista is kind of the one who is in charge of that. And then Dr. Steve Schmelly and Tara Mather are kind of representatives from the broader universities who bring an insight to our team from the perspective of folks who are in labs. So one of the things that's really interesting and that I like to frame this program as to people when we share it is that in a lot of ways, our program is a lab kind of operational focused program, but it's designed by educators. So that really kind of informs what makes our program unique and different compared to other universities, where things like the Sustainable Labs program or Green Labs programs are housed like in environmental health and safety, for example, or might be ran by folks who have kind of a really robust background in kind of the operations of labs. Again, Dr. Schmelly and Tara kind of help bring that kind of technical insight to our team, but the way that this program has grown and developed, and I think what you will see kind of in terms of what our program is like comes back to the fact that a lot of people with educational backgrounds and kind of the education brain is what it went into designing our program. You can go to the next slide for me, Krista. So big picture, again, kind of the structure of our program, there are some really key aspects of it. And I highlighted the Sustainable Lab Consultant piece there just because that's what Krista will get to talk a bit more about in the latter half of this presentation. But to highlight three really key things about what makes our program unique. One is we partner with an external nonprofit called My Green Lab or Impact Laboratories, which is an internationally recognized nonprofit focused on optimizing research operations. So they work a lot with industry and actually came out of working in, I think, biotech industry was where kind of the origins of their company came from. But they also work with universities, not just in the US, but across the world. And they offer kind of a third party, recognized and kind of backed by evidence-backed certification for labs to kind of interface with throughout the course of the year. We have a cohort model, and so I'm going to tie those two things together. The way that we run our program is essentially every year we have a new cohort of labs that joins us in the fall. We're sort of the guide rails for them and usher them, shepherd them through the course of the year from October to April as they go through our certification program. In the fall, they take a survey with My Green Lab that kind of audits all of their lab practices. They get a report back that gives them a sense of where there are opportunities to have impacts, make changes where possible, and then they kind of get the choice of what direction they want to go for the year. We're there to support them. Again, we kind of connect them. We're the connectors and we're the supporters. And like I said, we're the guide rail, we're the structure, but we don't prescribe that labs that go through our program need to do X, Y, or Z in order to kind of achieve what we want. We really want it to be doable and manageable and feasible and, within the boundaries of what the lab is actually interested in implementing. Now, there are two tracks for labs. So lab can opt to be an independent lab or an SLC lab, a Sustainable Lab Consultant lab. So we kind of give labs that choice because what we've recognized over the 4 years of doing this program is that not every lab is necessarily a great fit for hosting one of our SLCs. And again, if it feels sort of nebulous to you when I'm referring to these SLCs, Krista's going to be able to give a much better insight into who they are and what they do. But we give labs the choice between whether they want to be independent or host an SLC. And that's, again, a kind of unique aspect of our program. There are no other universities training undergrads in the way that we are to kind of support their Green Labs efforts. Again, going back to some of those first things that I shared, the goals of our program center around not only enhancing like the operations in a sustainable way for labs, but it really comes down to educating folks to create this kind of sustainable behavior change and give them the proper training and information so that when they are no longer part of the cohort and they end the year with us and get certified as a lab, they have kind of the tools as lab members and the information, and they've built kind of structures into maybe their standard operating procedures that help ensure that the changes that they made over the year can continue to be implemented. As I mentioned, they'll get certified by My Green Lab, which kind of happens on there's levels to it. So it's tied to, as I mentioned, they take that survey in the fall. As a lab, they'll revisit that survey in the spring and kind of audit what changes they've been able to implement over the course of the year. And they get a certification level based on that. Obviously energy is a big one for us. When we think about sustainability year over year, energy, waste in terms of like kind of plastic waste from labs, green chemistry, those are kind of pretty consistent across the years as things that labs want to focus on. And then this kind of is something I've mentioned multiple times now, but bundles all that together. Creating those systems for the lasting behavior change is a goal of our program. You can go to the next slide, Krista. So here's that pretty graphic that I mentioned that I wanted to share with folks, just because I know that we've got a really wide breadth of people here today from a lot of different kind of disciplines and backgrounds and degrees of familiarity with how research might look at a big university. So just to show you that we get labs that are not just science labs, let's say. There are labs from across 7 different colleges at Penn State. We also have brought in labs every single year from the Commonwealth campuses. So we've had folks up at the Barron campus, Altoona, the College of Medicine has been part of the program. Schuylkill has been part of the program. We've had folks not just focused at University Park kind of opt in to see what our program has to offer them. As you can see, we've got folks from agricultural science every year, engineering, Eberly College of Science, and the Earth and Mineral Sciences departments are kind of consistently our biggest cohorts. But again, as these graphics show you, they're definitely not the only pool that we're able to pull interested labs from. So just to give people a snapshot of kind of the fact that we attract a really kind of broad clientele to our program. You can go to the next slide, Krista. So just one last piece here, or a couple last pieces here before I turn it over on just kind of some of what we offer to labs going through our program. Beyond just sort of the intrinsic satisfaction of folks who are really driven by wanting to be more sustainable in their labs and kind of have that drive towards it being, the right thing. If you're somebody who works in sustainability or is interested in sustainability, you know that kind of internal motivation is not always enough to create kind of sustainable engagement. So we've been thinking at all times about what benefits that we're offering to labs beyond what they get out of the kind of making their lab more sustainable, because the reality is you save energy in your lab, that money's not just going to show up in your wallet right back to you. It's more kind of intangible that you're benefiting the university more broadly. But we want to be able to offer things that folks see and folks have over the course of the year that kind of enhance their engagement with our program. And so, as I mentioned, education is a big part of this. We offer professional development sort of stuff over the course of the year, have people coming from industry, have folks from central procurement come and talk to our labs about how to navigate the purchasing systems and identify more sustainable alternatives for things. We've had a member from EH&S come talk about green chemistry in the past. We have somebody coming at the end of this month to talk to them about cold storage and kind of optimizing their freezers or fridges. So we offer kind of, again, a structure over the course of the year where they have these supplemental education opportunities to learn as lab members. And we hope and have heard that brings a lot in terms of just added value for folks going through our program. This year also came with an exciting development of an industry advisory board for our program. So Kristen, my colleague who was on that graphic earlier in the presentation, who works with the Material Science Research Grant, put in a lot of work to identifying partners across industry who are kind of adjacent to the work that we're doing in the lab space, folks whose expertise is in chemistry or cold storage or purchasing, who wanted to kind of be part of contributing to the direction of our program. And we convened the Industry Advisory Board for Industry Advisory Day for the kind of inaugural time of doing that in November of 2025. It was a full day. They got to go out and meet folks in labs that are part of our program. They got to see campus a little bit. And as you see in that picture, they got to interface one-on-one with our SLCs, our undergraduate sustainable lab consultants. And that was a great opportunity kind of reciprocally for both of them. And, helped identify possibly some areas of interest for internships for undergrads, and just kind of gave them a chance to get a sense that, what we're doing and what they're doing and learning to do by being part of our program is stuff that industry really values and sees as a positive for them as young professionals kind of entering the workforce or academia or whatever it is. So I think I've just got one more slide, Krista, before I turn it over. Yeah, so to give you just all really quick a snapshot, as I mentioned this, to kind of ground the idea of that year-long cohort a little more for you all. So imagine this as a calendar going from bottom to top, going from September to April. We offer things throughout the course of the year so that labs feel like they have a structure when they join our program. Every lab kind of attends an orientation in the fall and goes through that baseline review with My Green Lab. In the fall, we have a couple educational series, as I showed on the last slide. We had Industry Day roughly mid-year. We're currently doing those lab visits. So we are right now about mid-year. So we're going out and visiting one-on-one with our labs. In the spring, there's the freezer challenge, which is that cold storage kind of optimization that I mentioned. We'll talk about a couple other things in terms of educational series. And at the end of the year, we do a big celebration with folks once they've received their certification. Now, before I hand it off to Krista, these blue things, the blue letters, I've tried to color code this kind of roadmap. Those the things that are shaded in blue here are pieces of the SLC program. So as our students learn about the different kind of aspects of lab sustainability, they bring those back to their labs, and sort of are value added consultants are what they are. And so they bring a lot to the labs in terms of what they've learned over the course of the entire year. They help them with plug metering, they help them audit their waste, they help them understand best practices for fume hoods. And so kind of holistically considered, all this stuff builds, I think, a really robust program for people not just wanting to learn how to optimize the sustainability of the operations of their lab, but to kind of take away some professional development and kind of softer skills around communication and project planning and stuff like that. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Krista, who can take the chance for the rest of our time here to talk a little bit to you all about the SLC part of our program.
All right, well, thanks, Jack, and hello, everybody. Long-time listener, first-time speaker, so really exciting to be part of GreenGov with you today. So Jack gave the big picture description of our program. I'm going to give you a little more insight on how we do manage the lab impacts, particularly leveraging the help of our undergraduates, who we train as Sustainable Lab Consultants, or SLCs. So we're in our 4th year of the program right now. You can see the first year was really a true pilot effort. We only had 5 students that we paired with labs just to see if that would help. And if it would be a good experience for the students. The slide's kind of a spoiler to that comment, because you can see we have grown the number of students that we are pairing with the labs. And we've been really pleased to be able to find our research labs that aren't just interested in getting the certification, but they also want to have some help to do it and provide some mentoring to the students along the way. So the picture here shows one of the graduate students that was working in that lab at the time on the left, and then our student on the right. So they're collecting the data and working together. We have had, you can see the stars on some of those students come back for a second, or in one case, a 3rd year, which is quite a benefit to the program. Those students come back and they want to help the program. They want to take a leadership role amongst their peers, because with these students also come in a cohort model. They start with that group of labs and they finish with the group of labs, and they work together throughout the year. So having those returning students has been a huge benefit. And really the students have guided what it is that they offer to one another to a large extent. But I'll talk more about their training and activities in a little bit. One key piece that I'll touch on again is we are very purposefully try to recruit students from a range of backgrounds. The first year we had funding from the College of Engineering, so we had all engineering students. And then their feedback was, wow, it'd be really helpful to have someone who's not an engineering student to work with on this. And we've taken that to heart. This year we have students from 11 different majors, 6 colleges, and I should add 2 different campuses this year. So why do we involve students? Well, we are a higher education institution. And as the program was getting ready to launch several years ago, we said, wait, we can have this thing for labs, but shouldn't we be educating? What can we do to provide, support the success of our students as part of this? So that's how we pulled that in. We teach. That's what we do. We are aware that, as I mentioned, with the backgrounds that our students come from, that diversity leads to strong and healthy systems. So really looking to have diverse perspectives. The students do not work in the lab. They don't do the research of the lab, but they come in to work with the lab in this program. So they bring their own perspective in as well. Jack mentioned we're leading R1 institutions, so we're trying to do our best support for research and our students. And we're really focused on preparing our students for the careers of the future, understanding how sustainability plays a role and how it can be integrated not just in a research lab, but beyond. So quick overview of the program. They start out even at the recruitment phase to say, hey, these are the things you'll be able to know and use. So they do get trained throughout the academic year and supported as they're working with our labs. So these are the key things that they look at. Of course, we want them to understand safety. That's crucial. They have to get safety certifications before they even go in the lab. And some labs ask them to do more depending on the work that they do. We develop a common language around sustainability, what it is, how to do it. Of course, they have to learn about the My Green Lab certification program and what's available for their labs to do within that. They learn about behavior change and how to assess the projects that they are managing. So that leads to quite a bit of training, which we're actually just wrapping up. We do that throughout the fall semester. So by the end of November, they have been trained in all of these things and actively reflecting along the way. So My Green Lab has a free ambassador training. If you're at all interested in Green Lab initiatives, I'd encourage you to take that same training our students take. It's free and available online, but it gives them an overview of what it means to be a Green Lab. As I mentioned, they get that safety training. They learn about sustainability, what it is, how to plan and manage projects, and they learn how to do a lot of data collection. You saw that on the year-long event roadmap that Jack shared with you. They really do a good job of assessing what is going on in the lab, how much energy and waste and water are associated with lab operations. They also learn about green chemistry, which does not apply to every lab they work with because our labs come from so many different disciplines. Some of them use chemicals in their research and some do not, but they learn about it anyway because it's part of having a green lab and gives them that full perspective on what's possible. Some of the more important trainings they get are actually the non-science, non-technical pieces. They're about behavior change strategies. So really drawing on social sciences and communication skills. These are often second and third year undergraduate students who the first couple weeks of the year are very intimidated because they're being asked to go alone into a research lab full of graduate students and postdocs and faculty who do research to help them decide what to do. And they build a lot of confidence in that by practicing these communication skills, how to best talk with the people in the lab and how to learn from them and help them think about their own solutions. We also do, it's not really a training, but we spend time each semester helping them build their resume. As Jack mentioned, this is the only sustainable lab consultant program we have heard of at a university. So if they were to put that was their job, no one knows what that means. So we're really trying to help them leverage all the skills and abilities so that they can leverage that in future career and maybe continuing education as well. So from that, we actually use a couple other frameworks to ground their training. One is this image here. It's the ABCD approach to sustainability project planning that was developed by the Natural Step, an international nonprofit that's been around 30 some years around sustainability planning and project management. And of course, they learn the My Green Lab framework as well. But I show you this ABCD process because I'm going to use that kind of describe how we approach the Sustainable Lab Consultant training and the impacts that it has. So this process, it's actually a very natural process that we all use to gain awareness of the current situation and where we want to go from here. Using that to backcast to the present and assess where we're really starting from. That baseline data plays a huge role here. And just general people's awareness. Then identifying some creative solutions to move towards that vision and deciding on priorities. So this is a nice framework that makes it easy for the students and the labs to kind of benchmark their progress and move towards the vision that they have for their lab. So with that, the awareness is raised, really getting to know their lab. Who is there? What do they know about this certification program and sustainability? Asking those open-ended questions to get answers that will help them identify where the lab is starting from, where it could go. And of course, that the My Green Lab engagement survey that is done at the beginning of the year helps gain some awareness amongst the people that take the survey. And when we see the results, where are we starting from? And this is where they start sharing some of their own sustainability insights and resources and solutions that might be useful, learning about them and sharing them with the lab. And as I mentioned, they collect a lot of baseline data, looking at that survey results, trying to make sense of it and help the labs understand what those results mean and what opportunities it opens to them. Of course, their baseline knowledge about the program is another piece of information that students gather. And they do a number of audits throughout the year. How much equipment is in the lab? How often is it on, plugged in? How much energy does it use? The picture we see here is one of our SLCs on the left and their coordinator in the lab doing some metering, some plug load metering to see exactly how much energy is being used when things are on. They also do a waste audit. They assess the water that's being used and install aerators where possible. And look at how the fume hoods are used, how, if they're, the sashes are raised too high or too low, how much energy they use and what can be done, knowing that baseline data. So a little sneak peek where we're at right now. This year, we just got our baseline data back in 13 labs where we have students working in the labs. So you can see that in those 13 labs, they use as much energy as 184 homes. That's pretty stunning, large amount of energy. And so we share this with the labs, what their own individual footprint is, but also, hey, you're part of this larger ecosystem, and this does have an impact. So we know where we're starting from there. We also know that in those labs, we have 6, what they're called variable flow fume hoods. So the airflow varies if it's open or shut. There's also a constant flow one that is constant airflow. So we have an opportunity to improve the load from those variable flow fume hoods. So we get that data as well. We looked at the waste, which is actually not too bad this year. We have maybe we could reduce the waste by about 10% if we could just get the labs recycling all the recyclables, but they don't have recycling bins within their labs yet. So this is also where the students can come in to help. We look at all the water that's coming through, what we could maybe reduce, use a lot of water just in the sinks, not even the equipment that they're using. And finally, we take a look at the My Green Lab survey results, and they look something like this. So this question, for example, is actually about reducing the load in terms of our IT and computing practices. So trying to get that shift towards cloud-based file sharing instead of documents, using the less energy intensive systems. So we can see that there's a lot of people in the lab that, yes, of course they do that, and others that don't know what that means, or disagree with the fact that they do that. And the charts show the variance in answers and potentially highlight some opportunities for creative solutions to address them. And that's in fact the next step they look at. So we're looking right now at what can we do from here, and really focusing in on behavior change, because if we're going to reduce the plug load of our equipment, most of the time that's due to users changing what they do with that piece of equipment. So we look at 3 different approaches: prompts, like little signs, turn me off when you're done; commitments, getting people actually to commit in writing to do something; and social diffusion, trying to spread that word around the lab and make it the cool thing to do that everybody wants to do. So we leverage some of the writing from this book by Doug Mackenzie Moore. It's been out for quite some time. He still does workshops on it. Social marketing, he calls it, a way to influence behavior change. So we look at a lot of those behavior change opportunities to shift lab practices. From there, they have to decide on some priorities, and oftentimes it is signs. So these are some examples from the last few years. Like, hey, you leave the lights on, please turn them off when you leave. Others make a more personalized approach to the labels, because they've gotten to know their labs. They know the things that they pay attention to, what makes them laugh, what gets their attention. So some of these signs are actually custom to the lab. One of them, with the fume hood sign, actually had a whole series of them, so they could replace the signs every month, and they left their lab with a stash of these little prompts so that they could continue to rotate them out, because you probably have signs like this in a workplace or a public place you go to that you don't even see anymore. You might have noticed them once, and it becomes visual white noise. So it's kind of fun approach the students take to this, to help decide on what to focus on. What are the big issues in this lab? Obviously, we've got 3 different issues here: the lights, the fume hoods, and using the wrong water purity for the wrong tasks. On the far right is another example of a behavior change strategy. So the others are prompts, little signs. And on the right is a lab that decided to have a visual commitment of people in the lab that they were going to do these things to help operations be more sustainable. And if they did them, they got, it's called a gold star, but it looks like little hearts on there. So you will want to get a lot of happy stickers next to your name, just like all the other cool kids. Plus it makes it public, so people are held accountable. So that's one way they help decide on priorities and help provide those resources to the lab. So last year, by the end of the year, we saw that indeed we did make a change. We were able to reduce the amount of energy that was consumed by the labs with our students in them. So we track that data very clearly, and the associated emissions. Now, this data came from 2 different campuses where they pay 2 different rates for electricity. So that percentage change is a little bit different because of that. But across the board, it's about a 16% reduction in the electric use. It's one impact that we've seen this program have. The other is actually the impact on the students themselves. Ananya wrote to me saying that this experience was pivotal in shaping her career path. It gave her hands-on experience, guiding initiatives that deliver measurable financial and environmental benefits. And she was able to develop really practical skills, such as critical questioning and evaluating trade-offs of different practices. So it's really, she's a computer science major, and it's really changed her approach to her work and to what she talks about in her personal life as well. So kind of those intangible, incredibly valuable impacts that the program has had. This year, our potential impact, if we were to take care of every piece of equipment in the utmost way possible, we would reduce the energy that we're using in the labs. So we could save over $42,000 a year if we were to implement all these changes in all the equipment. So reducing the load quite significantly. Good news, bad news, I guess. Folks in the lab with variable flow fume hoods actually use them very well. Not a whole lot of opportunity to reduce the load there, but some fine tuning of some practices could never hurt with that, but not a huge opportunity area. The water, we actually could save some good money and a lot of water by installing aerators on just the tap water faucets in the labs. And of course, the waste, as I mentioned before, we can keep an extra 3 pounds of trash out of the landfills if we can get that every week, if we can get those in place. So we have some potential long-term huge impacts if we're able to make small changes every year. And as I mentioned, there is a huge impact on what these sustainable lab consultants learn and do. So this is some initial feedback from them just in the last few months, the things that they have been able to learn to do. So networking, doing audits, developing communication skills, overcoming technical hurdles, a good job skill to have. Well, everyone will probably face that at some point or another. Really developing some confidence in their own leadership skills and abilities, because now they're seen as someone who knows, has value-added information. So being able to, adopt that and move it forward confidently. So great impacts there. Most important that we've been keeping this around is actually the impact that it's had on the labs that they are working with. So, and we have data on this too. So our labs that don't have an SLC with them, they do pretty well. Green is the top tier certification level with My Green Lab. Platinum is the next down. So if you did not have a student with you at Penn State, probably 49% of the time, you're going to get a pretty high ranking. However, if you have a student with you, 89% of those labs get certified at the highest level. And what does that mean? Well, that means that they've actually been able to make a lot of changes. The more changes that they can implement, the higher their rating there. So we do see a huge impact on what the labs are able to do by having a student with them. And we're not the only ones noticing this. So just like short minute to brag that we got recognized by the International Institute of Sustainable Laboratories with a Lab Programs or Initiatives Award. We earned a Trailblazer Award from My Green Lab for our program, which I thought was really awesome because we've worked so closely with them for so long on this, for them to identify us as such. And we've been asked to present on our program at the My Green Lab Summit, and we have presented at the I2SL, the International Institute for Sustainable Laboratories Conference, for the last 3 years. So delighted to have a chance to share this with all of you. I hope that there are lots of questions or clarifications we can make about our program. And here's how you can get in touch with us and follow up if you are so interested.
Thank you, Krista and Jack. Fantastic sharing of your program. We will now stop the recording.